Live. I'm your host, Dr. Rita Louise, and thank you all for tuning into the show tonight. So are you all stocked up on toilet paper? People are starting to post pictures of like no stuff at Walmart and whatever. And I commented to someone that was a little freaking out. And I said, yeah, I'm a pre-hoarder. And because she was saying people were hoarding stuff. And I'm like, yeah, I'm a pre-hoarder. But I meant, I don't know. I thought it was pretty straightforward myself. Anyway, hey, thank you all for the show. We are continue our conversation about reptilians. This is part 4, and I think it will be our last part. But just as a very quick review, in the first episode, I talked about what contemporary ufologists talk about these underground bases, and they suggest that reptilians live in underground bases. They have advanced technology, including genetic engineering, and their goal is to control the earth and everyone on it. And, you know, in the episodes, I talked about the global myth. I talked about the underworld, the place deep within the earth where they live, and it's located deep, deep within the earth. And according to Indian lore, there are 7 levels, and the deepest one is the home of the Nagaloka, the serpent people. And then last week, I did a little exploration of imagery that's used around the world to depict these, they're described in myth as fertility gods. They are tied to the water. They're tied to the creation and education of humanity. They're said to live in the watery deep. And they're, regardless of what culture you look at them, I'm back, or head of a human, and the lower part of their body as a snake, or with like snake leg things or whatever. Anyway, so we're going to be continuing today, and today we are going to be talking about one of the other concepts was in these underground bases, they are doing genetic engineering. So what about this whole claim of genetic engineering? Okay. So in myth, there is the term that's called chimera, and it is used to describe any mythical or fictional creature that has parts taken from various animals. In other words, a chimera can be a hybrid of any creature. And they're perceived as being wildly imaginative and implausible. So basically, they think it's a figment of our imagination. And so this image is the chimera of Arzo, and it has a lion's head with a goat rising out of its back and a snake tail. So this not just has 2 animals, it has 3. But we see this imagery, and especially we see this imagery in Greek myth. So one of my personal favorites on the left-hand side is the harpy, and that image is from Jason and the Argonauts. Excellent movie if you haven't ever seen it. In the center is the centaur, a creature with the upper part of a human body and the lower part of a horse. And on the right is a Pan, a god with a god that has the body of a man, but the legs and horns of a goat. And in myth or in art, he's often depicted playing a flute. In India, they have the Makara, and it's depicted as having the body of an antelope, elephant, or cat, and the back of a fish. Sometimes it's a large crab, part crocodile, part bird, and even a deer with a fish tail. So that's a bit ambiguous, but again, I'm talking about these compilations of different creatures that are combined into one. Kind of like Frankenfish that we have now, which has the genetics of a salmon mixed with an eel because they grow faster. I don't know. There was some reason that they were doing it. And I'm like, well, what if they like electrocute you? Frankenfish. But when you start looking at mythology, one of the things you find, so this is Berosus, and he comes out of, he's a Babylonian priest, and he tells of the hideous creatures that inhabit this underground realm. And he describes men who had one body but two heads, some with legs and horns of a goat, and even some with hindquarters of a horse and the body of a man. In short, and this is a quote, there were creatures in which were combined the limbs of every species and animal. So this is Berosus writing from Babylon. So it was Sumerians, Assyrians, and then the Babylonians. But in Native American culture, you find this quote: thus did the lowermost world cave become overfilled with living things full of unfinished creatures crawling like reptiles over one another in the blackness. And so the Jakara Indians, and that's where the Dulce base, we started the whole presentation talking about the Dulce base, and the Navajo and Hopi Indians have long-standing tradition of man's creation and emergence from beneath the surface of the earth. The Algonquians, which are another tribe of Indians, say, thus did the lowermost world cave. Oh, I already read that. Never mind. Okay. But then when you talk about humanity and the creation of man, we find that there are multiple stories that identify that man. Well, in the biblical story, man is created out of clay, and Eve is created out of Adam's rib, which, if you kind of take a step back and look at it from a contemporary perspective, my takeaway from it was that she was created out of some kind of genetic material that came from Adam. In China, we have Nuwa, who we talked about earlier, and she is responsible for the creation of humanity, and she made commoners like you and me out of brown mud and then breathed life into them. That part sounds pretty familiar. In Sumeria, we find, and there are multiple creation of man stories that you find, and one of them is about Enki and Niki working together, mixing clay with their own divine essence. Don't know what that is, but sounds good, to form humans. And others stories talk about that they use the blood of the gods, that they spit into a clay pot. See, again, the clay piece. But in their stories, and even in the biblical story, we find out that there were actually multiple attempts at creating humanity, and we were the final attempt. In the Mayan Popol Vuh, we find out that the first humans were made of clay, and when it rained, they washed away. The second group of humans, so the second creation of humanity, were made out of wood, and they lacked intelligence and didn't worship the gods in the way that they wanted. And then the third group of people that they tried to create were made out of corn, red, white, yellow, and brown, which I found very interesting because when you look at the races of man, they are red, white, yellow, and brown. And in the Aztec culture, after perfecting the world, Quetzalcoatl journeyed to the underworld to create humanity. And he traveled there to collect the bones of ancient humans, meaning the giants. And then the great snake transformed the bones into humans by corn and Quetzalcoatl's blood. So I feel like there's pretty good evidence and information that, we were a created / genetically engineered species, because if we were talking about information from, if they were just making this stuff up, let's start there. If they were just making this stuff up, one, there's really some consistency. I mean, I'm just kind of touching the surface on this. But where would they come up with it? I mean, how do you make up stories about something that you've never seen, never experienced, and it, you know, yeah. Anyway, you see where I'm going. Okay, so this is our last section, and it's about the reptilian agenda. What do they want from us? So it's suggested that these beings are controlling the government via the New World Order. So myth doesn't provide any information on who they are, what they want, and why they're here, although there's lots of speculation. One of them is that their goal is to reduce the population to 500,000, which kind of came off the Georgia Guidestones. And they're doing that through chemtrails, GMOs, and vaccines. And and I'm going to say this here, and I might repeat it, and I'm sorry, I'm looking for a lozenge here real quick. When we look at what's going on in our world today, and you can just take the flood that's going on the East Coast, where those people just seem so left behind, and you hear these stories and you just shake your head about what the heck is going on. Where is people's humanity? There are days where it's easier for me to accept that there's a group of reptilians living in underground bases pulling the strings than to think that humanity is what we see these days. I mean, if we're this way to other people, it's a concept that I really don't even want to spend a lot of time contemplating because it's scary and sad. But here's kind of the rub. The reptilians or the fertility gods were responsible for the creation and education of humanity. Where would we be without them? They gave us fire. They taught us how to cultivate food. They taught us how to track the sky and the stars and so much more. Why do that? And if they were the first group that was here on planet Earth, why give up control to us in the first place? So what do you think? Are there reptilians living in underground bases? To me, myths seem to suggest that this notion is true, at least at some time in our past. So why can't it be true now? And if you would like more information, I have one other thing I want to show you after this about this whole idea. I mean, they don't talk about this topic specifically, but my two books, E.T. Chronicles, What Myth and Legends Have to Tell Us About Human Origins, and my book, Stepping Out of Eden, really delve into this global narrative, this global, what makes humans human. Really good reads, packed with information that I've been told makes your head spin. So, and there's one last thing I want to share, and I'm going to do that, and hopefully I can make this work. Share screen. Oh, it didn't. Oh, there it is. You can also, so if you enjoyed, and I was hoping the graphic would show up on this, if you enjoyed how I talked about how this graphic representation of different concepts travel around the world, I have a video that's available on Amazon called Icon, Deconstructing the Archetypes of the Ancients. And I didn't even know it. It rents for $1.99. $1.99. It's a full hour long. The soundtrack is amazing. Someone created it for this video. And I think you will find it very educational and informative. Anyway, where am I? Go back, StreamYard. There I am. And I'm back on the screen. Okay. Whew. Well, that was fun. See, so now I'm going to have to come up with a new topic for next week, which All right. I kind of like having this like multi-part series going on. Anyway, so I'm just going to do my little announcements and then I will come and say hi to people and start doing free on-air psychic readings. And so and I just want to share with you that, these are just very general one card readings. And if there's stuff that's going on in your life that you need some insights to, or, a deeper piece of information than you get from this card reading, please go to my website, soulhealer.com. That's soulhealer.com, and reach out to me and schedule a private consultation. While you're there, if you like your reading, you can go to, and I'm going to add this bad boy, soulhealer.com/live. I set up a little tip jar. So, if you've been coming, you're getting the free readings. If you want to leave me a little something, something, I'm good. I'm totally good with that. And you can do that by going to soulhealer.com/live or, taking a picture of the QR code. Okay. And if you're listening to the show on platforms other than Facebook or YouTube, and you want to join the fun and get a free on-air reading, I would like to suggest to you to go to YouTube and go to my YouTube channel, which is Just Energy Radio on YouTube, Thursday nights at 7 p.m. Central, and you can get into the chat and join the fun. And also one request, in the notes below, it has links to all of my stuff. And so if you could like and subscribe and, my different channels, I would really appreciate this. Share this show with people, stuff like that. Love you guys just even more than I already love you. All right. Well, there's 47 comments. Okay. So if it takes me a little bit to get to you and your reading,